Hello and welcome to the Lens at 177. And recently, the Australian government got itself involved in the rehabilitation program at the CWM hospital. And today with me on the program is the High Commissioner to Fiji, Australia's High Commissioner to Fiji, Mr. Ewen McDonald. So thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. First question to you, why did your government, the Australian government, see it fit to get involved in this program to give a new look to the hospital, CWM hospital?
So firstly, thanks Anish and Bulavanaka to you and all your viewers. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. The reason we got involved in the CWM hospital master plan is because of, firstly, our Vale partnership with Fiji, where we prioritise our work according to Fiji's priorities, and the government in Fiji have prioritised CWM in terms of a replacement national hospital in the future. We also wanted to support the master plan because, as we all know, for any national hospital in the future, the planning is incredibly important in terms of the sort of location of the hospital, the specialty the hospital has, the equipment the hospital has, and the workforce it has. So that meant we had to think about a master plan that enabled the hospital to continue for a period of time while that planning was done, and I'm very pleased the first part of that planning is completed through the priority plan that people have seen.
Why do you think it has taken so long for such a plan to be put in place and things to kickstart now?
I suppose from my point of view, we work according to the priorities of the government. We have a health program here that we have had in place for a period of time. We provide around about $9 million, I think, Fijian a year on that, so that'll continue. But I think a hospital of 101 years old, infrastructure of 101 years old, means that hospital has served a really good purpose here over a long period of time. And of course, in ageing infrastructure, maintenance becomes more costly and more difficult, particularly with modern approaches to healthcare. So from Australia's point of view, we wanted to get behind the priority set by the government, and one of those is to look at a new national hospital to replace, a hospital of 101 years old that I'm sure a lot of people in Fiji have had some relationship with, either born there, visited people there, worked there, and drive past that hospital all the time. I do. It's a very important part of Fiji as a national hospital for the people in the future. So again, from my point of view, the planning is really important in terms of getting the right hospital that will be in place for the next 30 years.
And do you see the political will in Fiji from those in power to go ahead with this plan?
Yes, I do. We've had this made very clear to us from the Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Ministers, particularly the Finance Minister, as well as the Health Minister, that this is an important priority. And what I've noticed also is that at some of the launches, and you've probably seen this too, Anish, we've had a cross-section of parliamentarians there, not just from the government. So I think there is a real interest in this area and the importance of it for Fijian people. So I'm seeing a lot of support from the government for us to not only support each other in terms of this priority, but also to get on and do the work.
No country should have a health facility that is 100-year plus. Do you agree with that?
Well, a 100-year plus facility, I'm sure there are probably some around the world as well. I mean, Anish, I would say that, a replacement hospital will be a very costly, it'll be a costly project. And one of the things that, when you look at a hospital that's 100 years old, is that we are working really closely with the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank, because when you go through a project like this, it's really important that at the end of the planning process, the financing around a new national hospital is in place. So you need to make sure you're bringing those partners along with you. So, you know, I can't comment on the hospital being 100 years old, but I can say that I know that this is a priority for the government going forward, and Australia's pleased to be part of that.
Part of the plan that was released, there were 355 priority projects that were identified, reduced to a short list of 189. Who determined this list?
So there was a criteria developed by CWM management and by the Ministry of Health and Medical Services. So that criteria was agreed with the consultants who looked at all the projects. From my point of view, some of those criteria are really around the continued operation of the hospital. So what I mean by that is those things that impact on safety, you know, fire, those sorts of things. Also, I think those things that are needed to keep the hospital operational for the next period of time till we get the new national hospital. But also, I think it reflected some of the patient experience in the hospital. It did not include projects that the government was already undertaking. So if you think about the elevators in the hospital or the surgical wards, they weren't included. So yeah, we were looking at that criteria. That was a criteria we all agreed beforehand.
The plan also states there are 27 key priority projects that have been given high level costing in the plan.
Yep.
67 million is the amount that is mentioned, and out of that 14 million is been put up on the table by your government. Why 14 million in this stage?
Well, we put 14.5 million on the table. So I suppose in all these things we have to allocate the funding that we have from our government to support Fiji. We provided 14.7 million for the master plan itself, and that was announced last year. This 14.5 million we've done now is, I think, reflecting some of my objectives, which are immediate implementation of some of these projects. And this is funding that we could allocate now. I think from my point of view, I'm encouraging others, and I mean other like-minded partners and donors, to provide funding for this plan, because this plan is now in place. You can see the priorities for the hospital. So in the past, if donors have been unable to identify where they should put their funding, I think that is now clear. And I'm encouraging others to contribute, and there'll be a round table with potential other partners with the Health and Medical Services team here to encourage others to put forward funding. Just with Australia's funding, over the last 18 months, Anish, since we signed the renewed and elevated Vale, we've put in about $280 million Fijian, and on average we're providing about 150 million Fijian per year. In addition, Australia is a significant funder of the ADB and the World Bank, as well as regional organisations like SPC and UNICEF as well. We provide funding to. So we want to work in partnership with all these partners against together on a priority that's very high for the Fiji government. So our funding, our 14.5 million, will be in addition to the 9 million that we've already provided. It'll be in addition to the 14.7 we've given for the master plan, and it'll be in addition to the budget support that we'll continue to provide to the Fiji government.
And would you know how much is the Fiji government willing to put on the table?
The Fiji government, I know, have a maintenance and infrastructure budget for the hospital, and I know they have funding for a number of projects, as I said earlier, the elevators and the surgical wards. I think one of the challenges in any infrastructure, and Anish, you may have experienced this yourself, is implementation, and we experience this in Australia as well as anywhere else. So one of the things that particularly DPM Prasad and the Health Minister were supporting and suggesting is a project implementation team to be set up that basically is a team of experts such as engineers and architects and planners to ensure that the implementation associated with funding that's provided by the government can occur in a timely way. And I think that's a really good thing. In our case, Australia, in this immediate period, we will use our new facility, our own facility, which has expertise that we've gathered for all our projects here. But also we will include some of the learnings we've had. As you probably know, some of the schools we've rebuilt after Cyclone Yasa and Anna. And around that, we'll be using the same model. And that model is about local firms, local people, local materials, or locally sourced materials if we can't get it here. So it's about helping the economy and helping the people. And in visiting those schools in the north, I must say, the community loves those schools, and the people who built those schools love those schools. They're all disability accessible, solar, water. They're just fantastic. Withstand future cyclones. So we want to use a similar model here with the projects that are identified, that we use local people and we get the work done quickly. And I expect, if not today, very soon, the first half a dozen projects to be identified. And in Australia's case, we have already engaged an engineer who's already started, who was in the hospital yesterday, looking at some of those potential projects with one of my staff, Ewen, and we're ready to implement as soon as those priorities are identified.
High Commissioner, we'll take a short break and continue the discussion after the break.
Thank you, Anish.
Welcome back. The High Commissioner of Australia to Fiji, Mr. Ewen McDonald, is with me. So let me talk about, at the launch of the plan, you asked international donor partners to come on board. Has anyone put up their hand since then?
Anish, I'm seeking them out at any of the diplomatic events I'm going to for a bit of a chat. I think the round table that we want to do with the management of the Health and Medical Services Department is a good opportunity for it to get everyone around the table and to be able to focus on those priorities that they've agreed, the management team as the ones we should focus on, and then to ask donors to support that. And we will continue to actively do that. Australia will continue to actively do that. We think it's very important.
And do you have a cut-off time until when somebody can come and say, yeah, we are giving this much?
No, but today would be fine if they would like to contribute. But no, we are working with them, encouraging them. We all have different systems and processes to get approval for funding. So it's very important, I think, that they're going through their processes. But also, I think we can help provide the necessary information they need to argue and build the case. I think any of us that have been through CWM together over a number of occasions can see the needs that are there. And when you look at the report, you can see the number of projects that people support. So there are two bits to this for me. One is the short-term support for the hospital whilst the new hospital is developed in terms of the master plan. But the second bit is really to ensure that when we get to the end of the master plan, the potential finances of that hospital are well informed about the planning and the decisions that have been made, and therefore that part is also addressed as we're developing the plan.
You mentioned an Australian engineer is already on the ground, but who will carry out the construction works? Will there be tenders called? Will these tenders be vetted by somebody? If yes, who?
Yes, there'll be Fijian companies. We've already decided that in terms of Australian funding. So Fijian registered companies, and we will be identifying them through a process. As I said earlier, part of it for me is that we get on with the job quickly, so I don't want a long tender process. I want us to of course assess all the firms that are interested. But from my point of view, it's just getting on with getting it done, and Fijian companies have shown to us through the work we've done, as I said earlier, on the schools, their capability and their ability to do a really good job. And we'll provide some of that technical support over the top around engineers and plannings and architects if needed, as well to monitor the project. But yeah, I'm very confident that it's a good opportunity for Fiji companies and Fiji people to help us, and for us, Australia, to provide funding to support that.
Is there a committee formed which will oversee the works?
Yeah, so the committee, in terms of Australia's funding, we have a platform, it's called, but it's basically a set of technical experts that oversee the implementation of our funding overall, not just here, but across the board. So they'll be involved. There'll also be the new project management unit that's being established in CWM to oversee this. And of course, there'll be the high-level oversight from CWM management and from the Ministry of Health and Medical Services. So I think there'll be a lot of interest and a lot of, I'm sure, media interest in the implementation of these projects. So we'll be more than happy to keep you and others updated on the projects that we're responsible for and how they're proceeding. And I think one thing I would say, Anish, at this point, there's a lot of commitment and a lot of support to this first phase of the plan. And in speaking to people around Fiji, they've spoken to me a lot about the importance of a new national hospital into the future. And I'm not sure if we're going to talk about this, but one of the things that's also important for me is how we avoid people having to need to end up in the hospital. So what other preventative health measures can we take?
Well, let's talk about the long-term plan. 7 to 10 years is being mentioned in the master plan, in the plan that was released recently for a new CWM. Is that the ultimate goal of what's being done now, a new hospital for CWM?
Yeah, it is. So of course, one of the assessments is the current site suitable? So if I can probably help with the 4 phases, you sort of look at this initial phase we've been talking about, which is how we keep the current hospital operating. I think the second phase of the plan that's really important is the site selection. Now the site selection is really important because it needs to be able to be fit for purpose for how the hospital will operate in 20 years' time, 30 years' time. So if I look at an example, access to the hospital quickly, so the road network around it and that sort of thing will be important. The relevant space you need for whatever faculties are in that national hospital. So if you have a cardiac faculty or you have a cancer facility in there, how is that set up in the hospital? Do you need access through air, helicopter access? So there's a whole range of things that need to be thought about in terms of the site. So those sites are being looked at now. The second phase is starting. And of course, once that's done, we move into what is called a concept plan for the hospital, which is basically the sort of the breadth of activity that would occur in the hospital. And I think that, again, focuses people on what the National Hospital would do, and then into a very substantive design. Now, the design is not just about bricks and mortar. Right? A lot of people think about a hospital as bricks and mortar. It's much more complex than that. So it's the medical equipment that the hospital needs to have. It's the specialty expertise to operate that equipment. It's the administrative team to ensure the hospital keeps operating when equipment breaks down or when we need to recruit people or whatever. So this is going to be a very comprehensive plan, and the time period taken here is not dissimilar to what you'd see in Australia or anywhere else to plan a hospital that's going to stand in place for a very long period of time. So that's the 4 phases of the plan. Yes, it could take 7 to 10 years, but we've already seen 12 months on, there's been a lot of activity, and I think it's got some momentum, and I think you can be assured Australia will be supporting the government here to continue with that momentum.
You mentioned some sites have been considered. Are they around Suva or is it the same area?
Look, I don't know exactly where they are. They are in Suva, I think. I mean, one of the things that will have to be taken into account in the planning, I think, is the other medical facilities in the country as well. So when you look at a holistic plan for the national or tertiary hospital, where is it best placed? Is everything best placed in Suva, or do you have different parts of specialty in different places? I think they're decisions ahead for the government to make. And I think these assessments through the national plan will provide the necessary information and options for the government to be able to consider that.
Listening to you, I can draw the conclusion Big Brother Australia is holding the hands of small brother Fiji and showing Fiji how to go about doing things. Is that the best assessment in this case?
No, I think I've learnt through my time here that Fiji are very capable in what they do, and I must say, Anish, our partnership is one of equals. So from my point of view, this is Fiji's hospital. This is not Australia's hospital. We are here to work with your government, your people, on your priorities. What we can do, where we're asked, is provide some expertise and some learnings from what we've done in Australia. And as you know, not everything is successful, and we have learnings as we go along, so passing those on. But at the end of the day, the decisions that need to be made here are made by the Fiji government, not by the Australian government, and we will support whatever decisions are made.
For any reason or reasons this plan fails, what would be those reasons?
Well, from my point of view, I don't want to see the plan fail. And I think one of the most important things is that we start off with a very positive, strong agenda on implementation. So our team in the Australian High Commission know my desire for that. So I would hope that the plan gets off to a good start. I'm already seeing the plan move into the next phases on the National Hospital out. So I don't see any reason for the plan to fail. Of course, funding is always an issue, which is why we're so focused on that aspect, encouraging others to be part of it. Also, I think asking the government to prioritise those projects so people are very clear on those projects that need to be funded under the plan. So I don't see it failing. Certainly, I hope it doesn't fail, because I think it's a very important project. And as you know, for any economy, any country, to health system is incredibly important. And for this country to see, so many Australians come here every year, a record number last year. They love the people, they love the country, and of course, a country like Fiji, a middle-income country, deserves and should have a high-quality health system for their people, but also for the country overall.
Final question for this segment, High Commissioner. You are leaving soon. Do you expect your successor, who's coming in, to lift the baton where you are going to leave it?
Absolutely. So in my briefing to the new High Commissioner, and he's not announced, she's not announced yet, but I've already had discussions about the priorities. One thing I can assure you, Anish, is our Vivale partnership is very well known in Australian government, not only because Drua have been so successful in our Super League, but also because people have really seen it flourish, and the new High Commissioner will have a big plate of activity in front of them. It's a legacy I'm very happy to leave, and I'm very confident that it will be implemented well. We have a really good person coming in. We've got an excellent team in the Australian High Commission, but more importantly for me, our relationship between Fiji and Australia is very strong.
High Commissioner, we'll take another short break.
Thank you.
Welcome back, and the Australian High Commissioner to Fiji, Ewen McDonald, is with me, sir. Part of the plan is also looking at St. Giles. What are the recommendations in the plan for that facility?
So St. Giles has been equally assessed as part of the CWM first phase, and that's a slightly different structure, as you know, a more colonial residential type structure. The main things coming out of that, I think, of immediate need are really around ensuring it's prepared for any cyclonic activity. So the roofing is one area I know that was a priority for there, but also the lighting was also another. So I think they're two major bits that came out of it for me for that particular facility that we need to address as a priority.
You've said the works have commenced at the ground level. By when can we see hive of activity at CWM or even at St. Giles that will impact, that will show the public, yes, something is happening?
Well, as I said, we had the engineer we engaged this week was in the hospital yesterday. So hopefully some people saw the engineer and one of my staff there, Ewen. But also, I think as soon as the projects are approved, the first batch, which I expect to happen today or early next week, you will see activity immediately through the engagement of the local firms that I talked about and the implementation of those projects. Some of them go to, as I said, the safety and fire risk of the hospital, but also others are things like leakage in the hospital. So the roofing of the hospital, and I think you'll see some obvious activity quite quickly, and that, from my point of view, will be very good. So we are ready. We have the funding. We have the team very focused on it, and I think Fijians can be assured through the work we did, as I said earlier, on things like our school rebuild, that we will do what we say we're going to do. And just on that, we've also allocated another 47 million Fijian for the Nasori corridor in terms of schooling as part of our social infrastructure work. So this is an important, all that infrastructure of which CWM is part, is an important part of our work on education and health for Australia.
If you had to bring in more expertise from Australia, what could be those areas of expertise that could be coming to CWM project, apart apart from engineers you've mentioned?
Yeah, I think we'll have to wait and see. I mean, if they're available here, we would prefer that. But some of the skills that we'll need are planners, obviously, in terms of planning the new hospital. People who are expertise, and the consultants that we've engaged have expertise in designing a contemporary hospital and the options around that. Besides engineers, you're going to need architects as well. So as the project evolves, I think that'll emerge, what sort of other skills may not be available here. But I just want to assure people that we will look here first for the sort of skills we can get. And even our platform that we've set up for the administering of our own funding here, again, we're recruiting local people where we can to do that work. And I know myself in our Australian High Commission, we have some absolute first-class Fijians working for us, and they've worked for us for a very long period of time. And they're highly valued. So yeah, it's hard for me to know exactly if we need to do that, but I just want to assure you and the people here that our default will be locally sourced people and locally sourced material first.
Aspen from Australia is in a public-private partnership operating Lautoka and Bar hospitals. Let me ask you this, High Commissioner, what's the possibility Aspen could get involved in CWM?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, Anish. I mean, that's a matter for Aspen, I suppose, and the government here. As you said, it's a public-private partnership, so it's not one that the Australian government is involved in. So yeah, there's not much I can add.
So what are the lessons then which can be implemented at CWM that we can see in Bar and Lautoka at this point in time, the management of the hospital?
Look, I think in any hospital, anything as part of a plan that you're putting together, you want to take best practice from across the board, whether it's here in Fiji, in Bar and Lautoka, or whether it's elsewhere. So what I'm hoping for is that the Fiji government is provided with options that are contemporary and are the best available information for them on how to effectively manage a complex hospital, which it will be. What are the sort of components of that hospital? And people often look at the here and now. I'm encouraging our team and others to provide the government with options that look out, whether it's 30 years, 40 years. You know, I know it's hard to envisage. There's been a lot of development on medical technology and the like, but we should be trying to look out to make sure the hospital is fit for purpose. I think the other thing that will come forward as part of this is what role will this hospital play in the region overall, in the Pacific region. So if you think about Fiji, where it's geographically located, it's got a lot of through traffic from elsewhere in the region. So one of the decisions that will come forward, I think, is if you had a specialty cardiac area, how widely is that open or not? How is it sort of prioritised? So I think from my point of view, I will be wanting the consultants to use the expertise from both Bar and Lautoka, but also from elsewhere as well.
Australia could have just said, here Fiji, take this money, do everything yourself. But why is Australia so much involved in this plan?
Well, we're family, right? We're family. We have a valet together. I think, you know, of the jobs I've had, this is one of the strongest partnerships I've seen. I said earlier it's an equal partnership. I mean that. We do things for each other. I think all of us have a lot of friends in each of the countries too, so we get on quite well. We've got a good sense of humour, and we've had a lot of people educated in Australia. We've had a lot of people from Australia who are living in Fiji. So I think that relationship is really important going forward, and I hope that together we can make a big success of this, but also just our Vivale overall. And I've looked at, you know, the sort of things we're doing. You know, we're reinvigorating the shipbuilding here to create, you know, an industry that the Prime Minister is very focused on in the future. That provides an opportunity for new skills and work, and again is potentially another hub here. So when you look across the board, all the work we're doing together, be it health education, women and girls, or in some of these areas like our ports MOU to upgrade your ports, or the Lautoka foreshore, or, you know, sport. And one of the things about the sport for me is it plays into health overall. So what we want to work with you on is how do we help when there's a HIV outbreak? So do you need more test kits? Do you need more expertise? And next week, we've got the head of our health centre coming here, and one of the things I'm asking him to do is go and face the media with a media event at the press club, so he can talk about his expertise in HIV. Also, we are supporting the Drua at an elite level, but we're also supporting the netball, you know, the Pearls as well. And of course the Fiji Drua women have played 3 grand finals in a row and won 2 of them. The men have made 2 finals, but we've also got Team Up, which is a grassroots kids sport. So, you know, when you look across the breadth of our activity, whether it's defence, whether it's the police reset, I think it's a reflection of the strength of the partnership. And, you know, Fiji plays such a critical role in the region and globally. And Prime Minister Rambuka's Ocean of Peace is being discussed quite actively, particularly given, you know, how challenging the global circumstances are at the moment. So I think we all have a collective interest together to work together in the region. And for me, Fiji, as I said earlier, is one of our strongest, if not strongest, partnership that we have.
If this CWM project is pulled off successfully, what will it be remembered for?
Well, I think it will be remembered for a couple of things. I think it'll be remembered for achieving what it set out to achieve. So the objective to have a national hospital that's fit for purpose for Fiji. That it's a Fiji-led project. That it has opportunity for Fijians to be part of that hospital in the future, in terms of the workforce, in terms of the maintenance, in terms of the whole operation of the hospital. And Fiji will be proud of that hospital. Australia will be proud that we were able to support Fiji with the construction of that hospital, and it'll really help, I think, in terms of the health of the people of Fiji and the people who visit Fiji.
Since you have kick-started this plan, would it be satisfied to you to see your name in one of the wards, the Ewen McDonald ward? Are you secretly lobbying for something like that before you depart our shows?
I'm definitely not lobbying for that. I think that is something I don't deserve. There are many people far more deserving than me on that. And I must say, you would have heard me, many of you, on many occasions when I speak at any of these launches. One of the first things I do is thank from the bottom of my heart the staff that are working in that hospital every day and supporting people every day. And I went there with one of the doctors, VJ, who is cardiac specialist in Australia at the Gold Coast the other week to CWM. And to see the people working in that hospital and what they're dealing with, incredible. So I think we should be naming the awards after people far more deserving than me, and my satisfaction comes from just seeing the project develop and us being able to support and do our bit, and for Australia to follow through on what it says it's going to do.
High Commissioner, thank you very much for speaking to me, and all the best at your next station.
Thank you, Anish.